They say absence makes the heart grow fonder, but does it really? Or does it simply make the avoidant ex feel relieved? The great poet Rumi once said, "Don't grieve. Anything you lose comes round in another form." But right now you're not looking for something new. You want to know if your avoidant ex, the one who pushed you away, ever looks back and misses what you had. The truth is, avoidants are wired differently, and understanding their mindset is the key to unlocking the answer. You see, avoidance isn't just a behavior, it's a defense mechanism. Some of the greatest minds, from Carl Jung to Maya Angelou, have spoken about the human tendency to protect oneself from pain, even at the cost of love. Your ex didn't leave because they didn't care. They left because they feared the depth of connection. But does that mean they never miss you? That's what we're here to uncover. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "That which doesn't kill us makes us stronger." And right now, you might be feeling the weight of rejection, wondering if your silence is making them second-guess their decision. The reality, avoidants don't process emotions the way you do. They don't respond to loss with immediate regret. They suppress, they rationalize, and they distract themselves. But that doesn't mean you're forgotten. Imagine for a second that your ex is alone in their room, scrolling through their phone, coming across an old picture of you two together. For a brief moment, nostalgia hits. But before they can sink into those feelings, their mind slams the door shut. Avoidants don't confront pain head-on, they run from it. The question isn't whether they miss you, it's whether they'll ever let themselves feel it. Leonardo da Vinci once said, "Nothing strengthens authority so much as silence." If you're still giving your ex access to your energy, your emotions, or your reactions, you're feeding the cycle. But if you step back, truly step back, something shifts. Your absence becomes a mirror, forcing them to see the space where you once stood. That's when the avoidant starts to feel the weight of loss. So, what happens when an avoidant finally does miss you? Do they reach out? Do they regret their decision? Or do they simply bury it deeper and move on? The truth is, it depends on one crucial factor: how much power you still give them. If you're sitting by the phone, waiting for a sign, they can sense it. But if you've genuinely detached, that's when they start to wonder. Oprah Winfrey once said, "When you undervalue what you do, the world will undervalue who you are." If you keep chasing validation from someone who runs from emotions, you're only reinforcing their belief that they can leave and still have access to you. But the moment you reclaim your worth, truly, unapologetically, that's when the dynamic changes. That's when they start to feel something they never expected: uncertainty. What if I told you that making your avoidant ex miss you isn't about playing games or using silence as a weapon? It's about mastering the art of self-respect. Because the truth is, when you genuinely move on, you stop needing to ask, "Do they miss me?" And that's when they do. Not because you manipulated them into it, but because they finally realize what they lost. So, I challenge you, instead of waiting for them to look back, start looking forward. Comment below, "I reclaim my power," if you're ready to take back control. And if you truly want to understand the psychology of avoidance and how to break free from their grip, stay with me until the end of this video. What you're about to learn could change everything. Ace Wisdom presents Does Your Avoidant Ex Miss You? The Truth Revealed. Key point number 1. Avoidance miss you, but not in the way you expect. It's easy to assume that if someone misses you, they'll reach out, express regret, or try to rekindle what was lost. But when it comes to avoidance, things don't work that way. Avoidant individuals experience longing differently than those with secure or anxious attachment styles. Instead of openly missing you and taking action to fix things, they suppress their emotions, convincing themselves they're better off alone. As Sigmund Freud once said, "Unexpressed emotions will never die. They are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways." Avoidants bury their feelings, but that doesn't mean they don't exist. When an avoidant ex begins to miss you, they don't immediately acknowledge it. Instead, they rationalize why the breakup was necessary. They tell themselves that emotional closeness felt suffocating, that relationships are too much effort, or that independence is their priority. This is their defense mechanism kicking in. It protects them from the pain of vulnerability. However, over time, small moments trigger their nostalgia. A familiar scent, an inside joke, a song that once played in the background while you were together. These tiny things start to chip away at their emotional wall. But here's where it gets complicated. Instead of reaching out like a securely attached person might, avoidants tend to withdraw even further. Why? Because missing you makes them feel weak, and they despise that feeling. Avoidants value self-sufficiency above all else, so when emotions creep in, they push them back down. As the great Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Their reaction isn't to lean into their feelings, it's to suppress, distract, and move forward without confronting them. However, suppression doesn't mean erasure. The more time passes, the more the avoidant's mind starts to distort memories. Instead of remembering the conflicts and frustrations that led to the breakup, they begin to idealize the good times. This is when they start to feel a subtle but nagging emptiness. The problem is, avoidants have an incredible ability to compartmentalize emotions. They can feel the void without fully understanding why it's there. This is why they may miss you, but still not act on it. They won't allow themselves to acknowledge what's really happening. The irony is, the less you chase, the more space you give them to feel your absence. If you continue to reach out, hoping for closure or a response, you're feeding into their need for emotional distance. But if you step back, focusing on your own life, something shifts. As Leonardo da Vinci once said, "The greatest deception men suffer is from their own opinions." An avoidant may convince themselves they don't need you, but given enough time and space, they start to question that belief. So does your avoidant ex miss you? The short answer is yes. But it's not the kind of missing that leads to an immediate heartfelt reunion. It's a slow, creeping realization that often arrives too late. They don't miss you in the way you want them to, and that's why understanding their mindset is crucial. In the next section, we'll dive deeper into how you can shift the dynamic without playing games to reclaim your own power in this situation. Key point number 2. Your absence speaks louder than words. One of the biggest mistakes people make after a breakup, especially with an avoidant ex, is trying to remind them of what they lost. Whether it's sending a message, posting on social media, or finding ways to stay in their orbit, these actions only reinforce their belief that you're still emotionally available. But true power lies in silence. As Sun Tzu famously said in The Art of War, the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. In this case, the enemy isn't your ex. It's your own urge to seek validation from someone who pulled away. Avoidants are used to people chasing them. They expect you to reach out, to seek closure, to prove your worth. When you don't, that's when they start noticing your absence. It's not an instant realization, but rather a slow burning awareness that something feels different. The absence of your energy forces them to sit with their own thoughts without distractions. This is where the real shift happens, not when you try to convince them of your value, but when they begin to realize it on their own. So, how do you ensure your absence has the biggest impact? In the next section, we'll break down the psychology behind detachment and how to truly remove yourself from their emotional grip, without playing games or sacrificing your self-worth. Key point number 3. Avoidance feels safe in distance until it feels empty. Avoidants thrive in emotional distance. For them, space isn't just a preference, it's a necessity. They've spent years perfecting the art of detachment, convincing themselves that deep emotional connections lead to entrapment. As philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre once said, if you're lonely when you're alone, you're in bad company. Avoidants don't usually feel lonely at first after a breakup because solitude feels like a return to safety. But here's the twist. Over time, that safety can start to feel like emptiness. In the beginning, they might enjoy the space. They'll tell themselves they made the right decision, that life is easier without emotional expectations. They'll fill their time with distractions, work, hobbies, casual interactions, anything to avoid introspection. But avoidance isn't the same as healing. At some point, when the noise dies down, they're left with silence. And in that silence, your absence starts to feel real. The connection they once took for granted isn't there anymore, and it's not easily replaced. The key takeaway? An avoidant doesn't miss you right away because they're too busy enjoying the distance. But distance, when given long enough, turns into isolation. When they start to feel the weight of true emotional detachment, not just from you, but from meaningful connection in general, that's when doubt creeps in. In the next section, we'll explore how this shift in mindset can make them reconsider what they walked away from. Key point number 4. Avoidants struggle with emotional permanence. One of the biggest reasons avoidants seem unaffected after a breakup is because they struggle with emotional permanence. This means that when you're not physically present, they don't feel your emotional out of sight, out of mind, at least temporarily. As psychologist Donald Winnicott explained, emotional permanence is the ability to hold on to emotional connections even when the person isn't around. Avoidants, however, have difficulty maintaining this because deep emotional attachment feels overwhelming to them. At first, this might make it seem like they don't miss you at all. They compartmentalize, focus on their independence, and convince themselves they're fine. But emotional permanence works both ways. Just as they don't immediately feel your absence, they also don't immediately process their own feelings of loss. It's not that they never miss you, it's that it takes longer for the reality to set in. And when it does, it often catches them off guard. The irony? This delayed emotional response means that just when you're starting to move on, they may begin to feel the loss. When they finally realize what they had, they might reach out, but not because they're ready to change. Instead, it's often an attempt to ease their own discomfort rather than genuinely rekindle the relationship. In the next section, we'll discuss why you should be cautious if an avoidant ex suddenly resurfaces, and how to handle it from a position of strength. Key point number 5. When an avoidant misses you, it's more about them than you. If your avoidant ex starts to miss you, it's important to understand why. Is it because they truly realized your worth and are ready to change? Or is it because they're feeling an unexpected void and want temporary relief? More often than not, it's the latter. As the philosopher Alain de Botton once said, the most painful thing is losing yourself in the process of loving someone too much and forgetting that you're special too. You must remember this when an avoidant suddenly resurfaces. Avoidants don't process emotions like those with secure attachment styles. When they miss you, it's usually not a sign that they're ready for deep emotional connection. Instead, it's a reaction to discomfort. The kind of discomfort that comes when their distractions aren't enough and solitude starts to feel lonely instead of freeing. They might reach out subtly, liking an old photo, sending a casual message, or even asking how you've been. But these small gestures aren't necessarily signs of change. They're signs of emotional management. This is why it's crucial not to mistake their return for a true shift in their mindset. They may want to reconnect, but that doesn't mean they've suddenly developed the ability to handle intimacy differently. If you let them back in too easily, the cycle often repeats. Initial excitement, brief closeness, followed by another withdrawal. In the next section, we'll explore how to break free from this pattern and ensure that if they do come back, it's on your terms, not theirs. A key point number 6. The only way to truly make an avoidant miss you. If you want an avoidant ex to genuinely miss you, not just feel a temporary void, you have to do something most people struggle with. Completely let go. The more you wait, hope, or try to subtly remind them of your presence, the more they feel in control. But when you fully detach and start focusing on your own life, you flip the dynamic. As Tony Robbins famously said, when you are no longer willing to tolerate something, that is when your life begins to change. Avoidants only truly miss what they can't have. If they sense that you're still emotionally invested, even from a distance, they won't feel the urgency to reflect on their loss. But when they realize you've actually moved on, when they see that you're no longer available, no longer waiting, that's when the fear of losing you for good sets in. Your absence becomes undeniable, and they're left to face the reality they once avoided. But here's the most important part. By the time they reach this realization, you might not even want them anymore. And that's the real victory. Because the goal isn't just to make them miss you, it's to reclaim your power, your confidence, and your ability to attract someone who chooses you without hesitation. In the next section, we'll talk about how to heal, grow, and build a future where you are in control, not just waiting for an avoidant ex to wake up. Key point number 7. Setting boundaries for healthy engagement. When it comes to relationships with avoidance, boundaries are crucial. If your avoidant ex starts to miss you and reaches out, it's essential to set clear boundaries to protect your emotional well-being. Avoidants may not fully understand the impact of their behavior, and without boundaries, the cycle of push and pull can easily resume. As author Brené Brown wisely stated, daring to set boundaries is about having the courage to love ourselves, even when we risk disappointing others. By establishing boundaries, you show that you value yourself and your emotional health. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you have to be cold or unkind. It means communicating your needs clearly and assertively. For instance, if your ex reaches out to you with casual conversation, you can respond warmly but maintain a level of distance. Let them know that while you appreciate their message, you are currently focused on your own healing and personal growth. This approach can leave them with no choice but to respect your decision, forcing them to reflect on their own feelings without the safety net of emotional entanglement. Avoidants often struggle with vulnerability, so when you assert your boundaries, it may prompt them to confront their own fears. Instead of reacting defensively, they might take the time to reflect on what they've lost and why they miss you. As philosopher Rainer Maria Rilke said, "The only journey is the one within." When you set boundaries, you encourage them to embark on their own journey of introspection, potentially leading to a deeper understanding of their feelings. It's important to remember that setting boundaries isn't just about creating distance. It's about fostering healthy communication. If your ex begins to show genuine effort in addressing their avoidance and reconnecting with you, you can consider slowly opening the door to dialogue. However, it's essential to gauge their sincerity. If they're merely seeking comfort without any real intention to change, it's crucial to maintain those boundaries for your own protection. Ultimately, the goal is to create a space where both of you can explore your feelings without pressure. If they truly miss you and are ready to confront their emotional patterns, they will respect your boundaries and approach the relationship with the necessary growth mindset. In the next section, we'll explore how embracing your own healing process can not only empower you, but also influence how your ex perceives the relationship in the long run. Reclaiming your power and moving forward. As we wrap up this journey of understanding the complex dynamics between you and your avoidant ex, it's essential to remember that your emotional well-being comes first. The insights we've explored together show that while an avoidant might miss you, the journey to genuine connection requires both parties to confront their feelings honestly. You have the power to influence the relationship dynamic, but that power is rooted in your self-worth and ability to establish boundaries. When you take the time to focus on yourself, heal and grow, you create an environment where genuine connections can flourish. The ultimate goal isn't just to make your avoidant ex miss you. It's to ensure that you never lose sight of your value and your capacity for love. Embrace this opportunity for self-discovery and let your journey lead you to a future filled with healthier relationships, whether with your ex or someone new. If you've found this video insightful, I encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments below. Your journey is unique and your experiences matter. Let's support each other in building a community of empowerment and growth. Remember, love should never feel like a game of chase. It should feel like a mutual choice grounded in respect and understanding. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of avoidant attachment and the intricacies of relationships. I hope you're leaving with a deeper understanding of not only your ex, but also yourself. Stay tuned for more content that dives into the complexities of love, attachment, and personal growth. Ace Wisdom presents Does Your Avoidant Ex Miss You? The Truth Revealed. Until next time, embrace your journey, cherish your growth, and remember that your happiness is your most important pursuit. When you go no contact with someone, whether it's an ex, a friend, or even a family member, the silence can feel deafening. Your mind races wondering what they're thinking, if they miss you, or if they've already moved on. But here's the truth. Silence is never empty. In that quiet space, a storm brews in their mind. one filled with doubt, curiosity, and sometimes even regret. They might not show it, but trust me, no contact isn't just affecting you, it's affecting them too. Famous psychologist Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." And that's exactly what happens when you go no contact. It forces them to confront emotions they've buried, fears they've ignored, and truths they've been running from. At first, they may feel relief, especially if they were the ones who pulled away. But as time passes, the silence starts to weigh on them, making them question their choices. The mind is wired for connection, and when you abruptly remove yourself from someone's life, it creates a psychological vacuum. They start wondering why you haven't reached out. They might check their phone more often, scroll through old messages, or even dream about you. It's human nature. When something familiar disappears, the brain fixates on it even more. Steve Jobs once said, "You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward." And that's exactly what happens in their mind during no contact. They start looking back, piecing together the moments and trying to understand what went wrong. At first, they might convince themselves they don't care. They'll distract themselves, going out more, surrounding themselves with people, maybe even jumping into a rebound. But here's the kicker. Distractions are temporary. The silence always finds a way to creep back in, and when it does, it brings questions they can't ignore. Did I make the right decision? Do they miss me? Have they moved on? And perhaps the most unsettling one, what if they never reach out again? That's the real power of no contact. It shifts the dynamic. Instead of you being the one wondering and waiting, they become the ones caught in uncertainty. Napoleon Bonaparte once said, "Never interrupt your enemy when he's making a mistake." While relationships aren't about enemies, the wisdom applies. Sometimes the best response is no response at all. Let them sit with their choices. Let them wrestle with the silence. But here's where most people slip up. They assume that just because someone isn't reaching out, it means they don't care. That's not always true. Some people are too proud, too stubborn, or too afraid to make the first move. They might be waiting for you to crack, to send that first message, to give them an opening. The question is, will you? Or will you stand firm and let them come to terms with what they've lost? No contact isn't about punishing them. It's about protecting your energy and giving yourself the space to heal. And as you do, something incredible happens. Your value in their eyes begins to rise. Because people don't miss what's constantly available. They miss what's absent. As Warren Buffett wisely put it, the stock market is designed to transfer money from the active to the patient. The same applies to relationships. Those who act impulsively often lose, while those who stay composed ultimately come out ahead. So, if you've ever wondered what's happening in their mind during no contact, stay with me until the end of this video. We're about to dive deep into the psychology behind their silence, the hidden emotions they don't want you to know about, and the exact moment they start to feel your absence. What you'll learn today could change the way you handle relationships forever. Ace Wisdom presents What Happens in Their Mind During No Contact. Number 1. The initial sense of relief is temporary. When you first go no contact, the other person might feel a sense of relief, especially if they were the one to pull away. At this stage, they convince themselves that they made the right decision. They may feel lighter, thinking they've escaped conflict, responsibility, or emotional pressure. This happens because, in the short term, the brain seeks comfort. Sigmund Freud once said, "Most people do not really want freedom, because freedom involves responsibility. If your absence means they don't have to face difficult emotions or answer tough questions, their mind will trick them into believing they're better off without you." But here's where it gets interesting. This relief doesn't last. It's like quitting a bad habit. At first, there's a rush of freedom. But then, the cravings begin. They start to notice the gaps you use to fill in their life. The daily check-ins, the comfort of knowing you were there, the small routines, all of it suddenly disappears. And that's when the doubt starts creeping in. At first, they'll try to distract themselves. They'll go out more, throw themselves into work, or even talk to new people. But the human mind has a funny way of working. When you suppress something, it often comes back even stronger. As time passes, your absence starts to feel real, and that's when the real emotional shift begins. The longer you stay silent, the more they begin to question their decision. And once that initial sense of relief fades, they're left with something much harder to ignore: uncertainty. Key point number 2. Uncertainty begins to take over. Once the initial relief fades, something unexpected happens. Uncertainty creeps in. At first, they were confident in their decision. They thought they had control over the situation. But now, your silence is speaking louder than any words ever could. They start asking themselves, why haven't they reached out yet? Are they moving on without me? Did I make a mistake? The mind hates uncertainty. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort of holding two conflicting thoughts. On one hand, they told themselves they were fine without you. On the other, your absence is starting to make them question everything. Even famous author Mark Twain understood this when he said, "It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so." They were sure they could handle losing you, but now that reality is setting in, they realize they might have miscalculated. And here's where no contact becomes so powerful. The less they know about what you're thinking, the more their mind fills in the blanks. Every unanswered question becomes a weight on their conscience. Every day that passes without hearing from you makes them wonder more and more. At this point, they'll start checking their phone more often, rereading old messages, or even looking for signs that you're still thinking about them. But because you're staying silent, they don't have any answers, just a growing sense of unease. And that unease, it's only going to get stronger. Key point number 3. They start to romanticize the past. As the uncertainty grows, something interesting happens. They begin to romanticize the past. At first, they might have focused on all the reasons the relationship ended. But now, their mind starts playing tricks on them. Psychologists call this the fading affect bias. It's the tendency for negative memories to fade faster than positive ones. In other words, the more time that passes, the less they remember the fights, the misunderstandings, or why they pulled away in the first place. Instead, they start reminiscing about the best moments, the laughter, the deep conversations, the way you made them feel. Famous poet Khalil Gibran once said, "Ever has it been that love knows not its own depth until the hour of separation?" And this is exactly what happens. They didn't realize how much you meant to them until you were no longer there. They might scroll through old pictures, hear a song that reminds them of you, or visit places where you shared special moments. Suddenly, they miss you, Not just in a general way, but in a deep, nostalgic, almost painful way. And here's the best part. Because you've stayed silent, they have no idea if you feel the same way. That mystery makes them crave your presence even more. At this stage, they start questioning. Did I take them for granted? What if I was too quick to walk away? Is it too late to get them back? And once these thoughts take hold, they become harder to ignore. The more they reminisce, the more they feel the loss. And when someone starts feeling that loss deeply, the urge to break the silence becomes almost unbearable. Key point number 4. The fear of losing you becomes real. At this stage, what was once just curiosity and nostalgia starts turning into fear. The fear that you might actually be moving on. Before, they assumed they had time. They believed that if they ever wanted to reconnect, you'd still be there. But as days or even weeks pass with no contact, doubt turns into panic. This is where their mind starts racing. What if they're actually over me? Are they talking to someone else? Did I underestimate how much they meant to me? The great philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "The thought of loss is perhaps the most intense of all pains." And that's exactly what they're feeling now. It's no longer just missing you. It's the painful realization that they might have lost you for good. They might start stalking your social media, looking for any sign that you're still thinking about them. If they see you happy, unbothered, or even thriving, it intensifies their anxiety. Because now, they don't just miss you. They feel like they're being replaced. This is when you'll often see them testing the waters, liking an old post, sending a random "hey" message, asking mutual friends about you, posting things they hope will get your attention. These small actions aren't accidental. They're signs that their fear is growing. They don't want to admit they regret their choices, but deep down, they're starting to realize that they might have made a huge mistake. And the more you maintain your silence and self-respect, the more their fear intensifies. Key point number 5. They start wondering if you've changed. At this stage, their fear of losing you turns into something even more unsettling for them. Curiosity about who you're becoming without them. You see, when someone expects you to chase them or break the silence first, they assume you're still the same person, stuck in the same emotions. But when you remain distant, composed and unbothered, it forces them to ask, have they changed? Are they becoming someone new without me? What if they're doing better now, without me? And this is where things start getting really uncomfortable for them. Because in their mind, the version of you that they left or distanced themselves from was predictable. But now, you're a mystery. And nothing is more attractive or terrifying than the unknown. As Oscar Wilde famously said, "To love oneself is the beginning of a lifelong romance." And when they see that you're no longer seeking their validation, it makes them wonder, what if I was the one who needed them more than they needed me? This is why no contact is so powerful. It's not just about making them miss you. It's about making them question everything they thought they knew about you. The more they wonder, the more they realize that the old dynamics no longer exist. Key point number 6. They start testing the waters. At this point, their curiosity, fear, and nostalgia reach a breaking point. They've gone from feeling confident in their decision to questioning everything. And now, they're desperate for answers. But here's the thing. They don't want to seem too obvious. Instead of coming right out and admitting they miss you, they'll start testing the waters. Subtle, indirect attempts to gauge your reaction without risking rejection. Look out for these common signs. A random "hey" or "how have you been" message, liking or commenting on your old social media posts. Posting things they know will get your attention, asking mutual friends about you, accidentally, on purpose, showing up where they know you'll be. They might act casual, but don't be fooled. These small actions are their way of checking if the door is still open. Because if you respond too quickly or too emotionally, it reassures them that they still have a hold on you. But if you remain composed, detached, or even unresponsive, it triggers something even deeper. Real fear of losing you for good. As Sun Tzu wrote in The Art of War, when your opponent is relaxed, make them toil. When full, starve them. When settled, make them move. This is exactly what happens in no contact. You've unsettled them. Hey, thought you would break first. But now, they're the ones feeling the need to reach out. And here's the most important part. How you respond in this moment determines everything. If you give in too soon, the power shifts back to them. But if you hold your ground, they'll realize that their usual tactics no longer work. And that's when they truly start to feel they're watching you but will never reach out. Here's why. What if I told you that the silence from someone you once cared about isn't accidental? That they're watching, waiting, yet they'll never make the move you're secretly hoping for. They see your posts, they notice your absence, they feel the shift in energy, and yet nothing. No call, no message, no explanation, just distance. It's frustrating, isn't it? But here's what you need to understand. Their silence isn't a sign of forgetfulness, it's a strategy. Think about it. If they truly didn't care, why would they still keep tabs on you? Why would they check your stories, stalk your page, or bring your name up in conversations? People don't watch what they don't care about, and yet they refuse to reach out. Why? Because reaching out means accountability. It means admitting that they miss you, that they made a mistake, that they don't have the power over you that they once did. This is what makes silence so powerful. The less you respond to negative people, the more powerful you become, said Robert Greene, author of The 48 Laws of Power. When you refuse to chase, to beg, or to demand closure, you shift the dynamic completely. Suddenly, they're the ones wondering, they're the ones left in limbo. They expected you to react, to break, to reach out, because that's what most people do. But you're different. Maya Angelou once said, "When people show you who they are, believe them the first time. If they walked away, if they ghosted, if they chose distance over communication, that was their choice. And now, they have to live with it. You don't owe them an explanation, a message, or a second chance. What you owe is yourself, your peace, your self-respect, your forward movement. Now here's the real kicker. They won't reach out because they expect you to do it first. They expect time to wear you down, for loneliness to make you reconsider, for nostalgia to make you weak. They assume you'll eventually give in. But if you refuse, if you hold your ground, that's when the tables turn. That's when they start questioning themselves. Steve Jobs once said, "Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice." This applies here. Stop waiting for them to validate your worth with a response. Stop allowing their inaction to dictate your emotions. Your value doesn't decrease just because they refuse to acknowledge it. So, here's what I want you to do. Let them watch. Let them wonder. Let them sit in the silence they created. Because eventually, one of two things will happen. They'll either realize what they lost, or you'll realize that their absence was the best thing that ever happened to you. Either way, you win. And if you're ready to take back your power, to stop waiting, and to truly understand the psychology behind their silence, stick with me until the end of this video. What's coming next will change the way you see relationships forever. Ace Wisdom presents. They're watching you but will never reach out. Here's why. Reason number 1. They want to keep the power. Power dynamics rule human relationships, whether we like it or not. And the cold, hard truth is this. The one who doesn't reach out holds the upper hand. That's why they're watching you, but staying silent. It's not that they don't care. It's that they want you to be the one who breaks first. Think about it. If they reach out, they risk looking weak. They risk admitting that they miss you, that they're curious about your life, that maybe, just maybe, they regret their actions. And for someone who thrives on control, that's a terrifying thought. So instead, they watch from the shadows. They keep tabs on you, waiting to see if you will cave in first. Sun Tzu, the ancient military strategist, once said, "The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting." And that's exactly what they're trying to do, win without making a move. They want you to feel their absence. They want you to wonder, to overthink, to spiral into self-doubt. They know that silence creates uncertainty, and uncertainty creates desperation. But here's where you flip the script. You don't play their game. You don't chase. You don't give them the satisfaction of knowing you're affected. Instead, you stand firm. Because the moment you refuse to give them control, the moment you show that their silence doesn't break you, that's when the power shifts. And trust me, they'll feel it. The longer you hold your ground, the more unsettled they become. Suddenly, they're not sure if they still have that grip on you. And that's when they start to panic. That's when they start questioning everything. So if you've ever wondered why they're watching but never reaching out, this is why. It's a silent power play. But the real question is, are you going to let them win? Reason number 2. They're afraid of rejection. Let's be real. Reaching out takes courage. It means putting yourself in a vulnerable position, risking the possibility of being ignored, dismissed, or even confronted. And for many people, especially those with big egos, that is too much to handle. They may act like they don't care, like they've moved on, like you're just a distant memory. But if that were true, why are they still watching? Why do they still linger in the background, silently keeping up with your life? The truth is, they want to reach out. But they're afraid of what might happen if they do. As Nelson Mandela once said, "May your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears." But unfortunately, their choices are driven by fear. Fear that you won't reply. Fear that you'll call them out. Fear that you're truly done with them. They hesitate because they don't want to face the possibility that they no longer have a place in your life. And here's something else to consider. People who walked away often assume the door will always be open. They think that if they ever decide to come back, you'll still be there waiting. But deep down, there's a lingering doubt. What if they're wrong? What if you've changed? What if, for the first time, they're the one who isn't wanted? So instead of risking rejection, they do nothing. They watch. They lurk. They wait for some kind of signal that it's safe to re-enter your life. But the longer you stay silent, the more they're forced to sit with their own uncertainty. And that's where you hold the power. Because the moment they realize you're not waiting, That's when they start feeling the weight of their own decisions. Reason number 3. They don't know what to say. Let's be honest. Some people are just cowards when it comes to communication. They disappear, they ghost, they cut you off without a word, and then they regret it. They second-guess themselves. But instead of owning up to their actions, instead of simply saying, "Hey, I messed up," they freeze. They don't know what to say because they know they should have handled things differently. They know that if they reach out, they'll have to explain why they left, why they ignored you, why they treated you like an afterthought. And that conversation, it terrifies them. As Mark Twain once said, "If you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything." But the problem is, they haven't been honest, not with you, not with themselves. And now, the longer they stay silent, the harder it becomes to break it. Think about it. If they were to message you right now, what would they even say? "Hey, I know I disappeared for no reason, but how have you been?" Or maybe, "I know I hurt you, but can we just pretend that never happened?" They know those messages won't cut it. They know that reaching out means facing the awkward, uncomfortable truth. So instead, they do what's easy. They watch from a distance. They check your updates, hoping to get a sense of your life without actually having to talk to you. They hover, but never step forward. Because stepping forward means accountability. But here's the irony. Silence is also a response. And by refusing to speak, they're speaking volumes about their character. They'd rather hide in the shadows than own up to their actions. And that alone tells you everything you need to know about them. Reason number 4. They're waiting for the right moment. Another reason they're watching but never reaching out is that they're waiting for the perfect moment to make their move. They believe that timing is everything, and they want to make their return when they think it'll have the greatest impact, when you're most receptive, when you've calmed down, or when they believe you're missing them the most. This desire for the right moment is rooted in a lack of confidence. They think that if they reach out too soon, you might reject them, and if they wait too long, they risk missing their chance altogether. They're caught in a cycle of overthinking, convinced that they need to plan the perfect message or the ideal scenario for a reconnection. Albert Einstein once said, "A person who never made a mistake never tried anything new." Yet, ironically, their hesitation to reach out stems from the fear of making a mistake. They'd rather stand on the sidelines obsessively watching your life unfold than take a chance on an imperfect attempt at communication. They want everything to line up just right, but in doing so they miss out on the reality that there may never be a perfect moment. This mindset leads to paralysis by analysis. They scroll through your social media, waiting for a hint that you're open to reconnecting. Maybe a post that shows you're feeling nostalgic, or a moment where you seem vulnerable. But, in their quest for the right time, they fail to recognize that every moment is an opportunity, not just the ideal ones. And as they wait, you continue to grow. You evolve. You become stronger, more self-aware, and more independent. The longer they stay on the sidelines, the more they risk losing their chance altogether. And when they finally muster the courage to reach out, they might find that the door they thought would always be open is now closed. So, while they wait for the perfect moment, remember this: you don't need a perfect moment to take control of your life. You can create your own opportunities, and you can redefine what connection means for you. Don't let their fear of timing dictate your worth or your happiness. Reason number 5. They fear confrontation. Confrontation is uncomfortable, to say the least. Many people would rather avoid a direct conversation than face the reality of their actions. For those who ghost you or disappear without explanation, the thought of having to discuss their choices can be paralyzing. They'd much rather remain silent than risk an emotional showdown that forces them to confront the consequences of their behavior. They might worry about how you'll react. Will you be angry? Hurt? Will you demand answers that they're not ready to provide? In their minds, keeping quiet is a way to dodge the bullet. They think that by not reaching out, they can sidestep any potential fallout. But this avoidance only fuels their anxiety, creating a cycle of fear and regret. Brené Brown, a renowned researcher on vulnerability, says, "Vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. Yet they refuse to embrace that vulnerability. They'd rather hide behind silence, allowing their fear of confrontation to dictate their actions. But in doing so, they miss out on the possibility of genuine connection and growth. When they stay silent, they may think they're preserving their peace, but they're actually perpetuating an unhealthy dynamic. The longer they avoid reaching out, the more tension builds. Tension that only intensifies when they finally decide to break their silence. When they do eventually reach out, they may find that their previous avoidance has created even more distance between you two. And here's the kicker. Avoiding confrontation doesn't eliminate the issue. It amplifies it. They might think that by staying silent they're protecting themselves. But what they're really doing is prolonging the discomfort. They're allowing their fears to control them, and that's not a position of strength. So, while they remain paralyzed by their fear of confrontation, remember that you have the power to choose a different path. You can confront your feelings, express your needs, and reclaim your narrative without waiting for them to step up. Don't let their fear hold you back. Instead, use it as a catalyst for your own growth and empowerment. As we wrap up this discussion on why they're watching but never reaching out, it's crucial to remember that you hold the power in this dynamic. Their silence, their avoidance, and their fear do not define your worth or your path. Instead, recognize that you have the strength to move forward, to embrace your own truth, and to seek connections that truly honor you. The reality is that their inaction speaks volumes about their character and their inability to face the consequences of their choices. You don't need their validation, their explanations, or their approval to thrive. You are more than their ghosting. You are a vibrant individual with your own journey ahead of you. So, I challenge you. Don't let their watchful silence dictate your emotions. Instead, focus on your growth, your happiness, and your relationships with those who value you. Take control of your narrative, and don't be afraid to seek out the connections that uplift you. If this video resonated with you, I encourage you to take action now. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an empowering discussion. Share your thoughts in the comments below. How have you navigated relationships with those who watch but never engage? Your story could inspire someone else who's feeling lost in a similar situation. Together, let's build a community where we lift each other up and empower one another to reclaim our narratives. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and remember, your silence is powerful, but your voice is even more impactful. Until next time, keep shining bright. What if I told you that the most painful betrayal isn't just being left, it's watching them move on as if you never mattered? No pause, no regret, no second thoughts. Just a clean break into someone else's arms. It's brutal, it's unfair, and worst of all, it feels like they never loved you at all. But what if I told you that what you're seeing isn't the full story? What if I told you that their quick rebound isn't a sign of strength, but of fear? You see, people with avoidant attachment don't leave because they stop caring. They leave because caring terrifies them. As Carl Jung once said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And that's exactly what's happening here. Instead of dealing with the emotions of loss, your avoidant ex is running straight into someone new. It's not about you. It's about escaping themselves. But let's be honest, that doesn't make it hurt any less. Watching them replace you so quickly can feel like a punch to the gut. It makes you question everything. Did they ever love me? Was I just a placeholder? But here's what you need to understand. Avoidants don't process breakups the way most people do. They don't sit in their emotions. They don't reflect. They distract. They suppress. They run. And a rebound? That's just another escape route. Remember what Steve Jobs said. You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward. Right now, it might seem like they're happy, like they've upgraded, like you were never important. But that's just the surface. Avoidants push people away. But the fear of intimacy doesn't disappear just because they found someone new. It follows them. It sabotages them. And in time, they'll find themselves in the same cycle all over again. But here's the real question. Why are you still focusing on them? The truth is, every moment you spend analyzing their new relationship is a moment you steal from your own healing. As Eleanor Roosevelt once said, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. Their actions don't define your worth. Their choices don't dictate your value. And their inability to stay doesn't mean you're unworthy of love. It just means they weren't capable of giving it. So, what's the move? Do you wait, hoping they realize their mistake? Do you analyze every detail of their rebound, searching for cracks in the facade? No. You do something far more powerful. You shift your focus back to yourself. Because nothing will confuse an avoidant more than someone who no longer plays their game. Nothing will shake them more than realizing the person they left isn't waiting in the shadows, but thriving in the light. Maya Angelou once said, "When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Your avoidant ex just showed you everything you need to know. They run. they avoid. They struggle with real intimacy. And unless they do the deep work, their pattern won't change. But you? You don't have to repeat your pattern. You can heal. You can grow. You can use this moment not as proof of your unworthiness, but as the turning point where you reclaim your power. As you navigate your own feelings about this situation, it's essential to remember that their quick transition doesn't diminish your worth or the love you shared. You are not defined by their choices. Instead, it's an opportunity for you to reflect on your own journey and growth. Let this be a reminder that your happiness and self-worth come from within, not from how they choose to cope. So, here's a mantra for you. I am worthy of love that is true and lasting, and I choose to focus on my own growth and healing. I invite you to comment this mantra below and affirm your commitment to yourself. If you find this video insightful and empowering, don't forget to like it, subscribe to Ace Wisdom, and share it with others who might need this reminder. Let's create a community where we support each other in reclaiming our power and embracing our worth. Stick around until the end, as we dive deeper into understanding avoidant behaviors and how you can navigate your own path toward healing and self-discovery. Ace Wisdom presents What if Avoidant X is seeing someone right after leaving? Here's why. Reason number 1. They're not actually moving on. They're just distracting themselves. At first glance, it looks like your avoidant ex has effortlessly replaced you. One day, they're with you. The next, they're in someone else's arms, posting pictures, going on dates, acting as if the relationship you had never even existed. It feels personal. It feels cruel. But here's the truth. This isn't about moving on. It's about avoidance. Avoidants don't process emotions the way most people do. When faced with loss, they don't sit in their feelings, reflect, or grieve. Instead, they suppress. They push everything down, pretending it doesn't exist. And what's the easiest way to avoid pain? Distraction. A new person, a new relationship, a new source of validation. It all serves one purpose: to keep them from facing the emotional discomfort of a breakup. Think about it like this. If you break a bone, but instead of treating it, you just take painkillers and keep running, does that mean you're healed? No. It just means you're numbing the pain. That's exactly what's happening here. Their new relationship isn't about genuine love or connection. It's about avoiding the emotions they refuse to deal with. And as Sigmund Freud once said, unexpressed emotions will never die. They are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways. This is why so many avoidants find themselves in a cycle of failed relationships. They never truly process what went wrong in the last one. They just jump to the next, carrying the same fears, the same wounds, the same emotional walls. And sooner or later, those walls will create distance in their new relationship too. Because the issue was never about you. It was always about them. But here's the part most people don't realize. Just because they're distracting themselves doesn't mean they're unaffected. The feelings don't disappear, they just get buried. And buried emotions have a way of resurfacing when you least expect them. So while they may look happy now, it's only a matter of time before reality catches up with them. As Bruce Lee once said, you cannot force the water to be still, but if you let it settle, the answer becomes clear. Their emotions will settle eventually, and when they do, they'll have to face the truth they've been running from. So, while it might seem like they've moved on effortlessly, understand that what you're seeing is an illusion. They're not healed. they're not growing. They're just delaying the inevitable. And the best thing you can do, stop watching their distraction and start focusing on your own healing. Because unlike them, you have the courage to face your emotions head on. Reason number 2. Their new relationship is built on rebound energy, not real connection. It's easy to look at your avoidant ex's new relationship and assume they've found something better, something deeper. But here's the truth. Most rebound relationships aren't built on love. They're built on avoidance, loneliness, and the need to fill a void. And when a relationship starts from a place of desperation, it's only a matter of time before it falls apart. A rebound isn't about the new person. It's about escaping the emotions they refuse to face. Your avoidant ex isn't suddenly healed, emotionally available, or ready for real intimacy just because they found someone new. They're still the same person, carrying the same fears, the same patterns, and the same inability to handle closeness. And as time passes, those patterns will resurface, just like they did with you. As Albert Einstein once said, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. At first, everything in a rebound feels exciting. There's no history, no baggage, no expectations. It's fresh, it's fun, and most importantly, it's distracting. But real relationships aren't just about the honeymoon phase. They require vulnerability, trust, and emotional depth. Things avoidants struggle with the most. So what happens when the excitement fades? When reality sets in? When the same emotional distance that ended your relationship starts creeping into their new one? This is why so many rebounds crash and burn. Because they weren't built on real connection. They were built on the fear of being alone. And as Tony Robbins famously said, the quality of your life is the quality of your relationships. If your avoidant ex is running from themselves instead of facing their issues, their new relationship won't magically fix them. It will only be another temporary escape. So, instead of torturing yourself by watching their highlight reel, remind yourself of this. They haven't upgraded. They haven't moved on in a healthy way. They've just found another distraction. And while they're busy running, you have an opportunity to do something more powerful, heal, grow, and build a life where you are no longer the one being avoided. Reason number 3. They're trying to prove something to you and to themselves. Have you ever noticed how quickly they made their new relationship public? The Instagram posts, the sudden happiness, the subtle or not so subtle attempts to show the world that they've moved on. If your avoidant ex is parading their new partner around like a trophy, it's not because they're in love. It's because they're trying to send a message. And that message is just as much for themselves as it is for you. Avoidants don't just run from emotions, they run from accountability. Instead of sitting with the discomfort of a breakup, instead of reflecting on their role in the relationship's failure, they'd rather create a new narrative, one where they're the ones who are fine, thriving, and totally unaffected. As Mark Twain once said, never tell the truth to people who are not worthy of it. And in this case, their truth is a carefully crafted illusion designed to keep them from facing what's really going on inside. Think about it. If they were truly happy and at peace, why would they need to prove anything? Why the sudden urge to flaunt their new relationship? People who are genuinely content don't seek validation from others. But avoidance? They need reassurance, not just from their new partner, but from you. They want you to see it. They want you to wonder. Because if you react, if you show even the slightest sign of pain, it confirms to them that they still have power over you. But here's the twist. This isn't a sign of strength. It's a sign of insecurity. Confident, emotionally stable people don't rush into new relationships just to make a statement. They take time to heal. They process. They grow. But an avoidant? They can't sit still long enough to do any of that. And deep down, they know it. As Shakespeare once wrote, "The lady doth protest too much, methinks." The louder they boast about moving on, the more likely it is that they're actually struggling in silence. So, the next time you catch yourself overanalyzing their social media or wondering if they've truly forgotten you, remember this. Their new relationship isn't about love. It's about proving a point. And the most powerful thing you can do? Stop playing into their game. When you stop reacting, when you detach, when you shift your focus back to your own growth, that's when you truly win. Reason number 4. They're running from guilt, not love. What if I told you that your avoidant ex isn't as carefree as they seem? That behind the smiles, the new relationship, and the fresh start, there's something they're desperately trying to escape. That something is guilt. And instead of facing it, they're running straight into the arms of someone else. Avoidants don't handle emotional responsibility well. They struggle to acknowledge the pain they cause others, because doing so would force them to confront something terrifying, their own flaws. As the philosopher Socrates once said, the unexamined life is not worth living. But avoidants? They'd rather do anything than examine themselves. They don't want to think about how they hurt you, how they abandoned something real, or how their fears ruined a relationship that could have lasted. Instead, they bury the guilt under a new romance, hoping it will make everything disappear. And here's where it gets interesting. Sometimes their new relationship isn't just about distraction. It's about justification. If they can convince themselves that they've moved on and found happiness elsewhere, then they don't have to feel bad about what they did to you. If they can rewrite the story so that leaving was the right decision, then they don't have to face the fact that they may have made a mistake. It's emotional self-preservation at its finest. But guilt doesn't just go away. It lingers, even in the background. No matter how hard they try to suppress it, moments of silence will come. Late at night, in between distractions, when their mind is left with nothing but itself. That's when the thoughts creep in. That's when the what-ifs start to whisper. And as Leonardo da Vinci once said, "A well-spent day brings happy sleep, but a life spent in fear leaves a restless soul." Their avoidance may delay the guilt, but it won't erase it. So while it may seem like they've escaped unscathed, understand this. They're not running towards something better. They're running away from the weight of their own choices. And the more you focus on your healing instead of their rebound, the more that weight will start to catch up with them. Reason number 5. Their avoidant nature will catch up with them. Again. You might be looking at their new relationship and thinking, what if they've changed? What if they're finally giving this new person what they couldn't give me? But here's the hard truth. Avoidants don't just wake up one day and magically become emotionally available. Their patterns follow them wherever they go. Avoidant attachment isn't about who they're with. It's about how they function in relationships. They crave closeness, but as soon as they get too close, they feel suffocated. They fear abandonment, but they also fear intimacy. so they push people away, even when they don't consciously realize they're doing it. As the great psychologist Carl Rogers said, "The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change." But avoidants don't accept themselves. They don't face their wounds. They don't heal. Instead, they repeat the same cycles with different people. Think back to how your relationship with them started. In the beginning, everything felt effortless, right? There was excitement, passion, maybe even an illusion of deep emotional connection. But over time, the distance grew. The push and pull dynamic became exhausting. Their inability to communicate, to be vulnerable, to truly let you in, it all started to unravel. And guess what? It's going to happen in their new relationship too. Because here's what most people forget. Who they are with someone new doesn't erase who they are at their core. The same triggers, the same fears, the same avoidant instincts. They don't disappear just because they've found a new person to entertain them. As the saying goes, wherever you go, there you are. If they didn't do the deep work to change, then they're just replaying the same story with a different cast. So while it might seem like their new relationship is perfect right now, understand this. Avoidants always return to their patterns. The same emotional unavailability that hurt you will eventually surface with their new partner. And when it does, you won't be the one dealing with it. You'll be too busy healing, growing, and becoming the version of yourself that doesn't settle for breadcrumbs. The reason number 6. They think you'll always be there until you're not. One of the biggest reasons your avoidant ex jumped into a new relationship so quickly is because deep down, they believe you'll still be there. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. They assume that no matter what they do, no matter how they left, you'll still think about them, still check in, still leave the door open, just in case they ever decide to come back. Avoidants thrive on emotional distance, but they also crave emotional security. They push people away, yet they want to know those same people still care. That's why they don't always completely cut ties. They leave breadcrumbs, little signs that keep you emotionally invested while they explore something new. And as long as they feel like you're waiting in the background, they don't have to fully face the loss of you. But here's what they don't realize. You are changing. Every day that passes, you're healing, you're learning, you're growing. And one day they'll look back, expecting you to be right where they left you, only to find that you've moved on. As the legendary Maya Angelou said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. They showed you, and now you're finally believing it. That moment will come. The day they send a casual hope you're doing well message. The moment they realize their rebound isn't fulfilling them the way they thought. The second they start reminiscing about the love, patience, and depth you gave them. And when they reach out, expecting the same old version of you. They'll be met with silence, or worse, indifference. And that's when it will hit them. They lost you for real. Not because you begged, not because you fought for them, but because you chose yourself over their endless cycles of avoidance. That's the moment they'll feel the weight of their own decisions, and by then, it will be too late. So the real question isn't why they moved on so fast. It's why you should care. The truth is you don't need to. Because while they're running in circles, you're walking forward. And nothing is more powerful than the person they once took for granted finally realizing their own worth. Reason number 7. They're not experiencing real happiness, just temporary relief. Right now, it may look like your avoidant ex is living their best life. They're smiling, going on dates, acting as if the breakup never affected them. But here's the reality. What you're seeing isn't true happiness. It's temporary relief. And there's a big difference between the two. Avoidants don't handle emotional discomfort well. Instead of sitting with their feelings and processing them, they run. And their new relationship? It's just another escape. A quick fix. A way to keep themselves distracted from the thoughts and emotions they don't want to face. But as psychologist Carl Jung once said, what you resist persists. No matter how hard they try to mask their pain with new excitement, their unresolved wounds will follow them. Think about it like this. If someone's drowning and they grab onto a floating piece of wood, they might feel safe for a while. But that doesn't mean they've learned how to swim. They're just delaying the inevitable. That's exactly what your avoidant ex is doing. Their new relationship isn't built on deep emotional growth. It's built on avoidance. And once the honeymoon phase fades, they'll be left with the same fears, the same issues, and the same inability to form real intimacy. True happiness doesn't come from avoiding pain. It comes from facing it, healing from it, and growing beyond it. But that takes work. It takes self-awareness. And unless your avoidant ex has done that inner work, which, let's be honest, rushing into a new relationship suggests they haven't, then their so-called happiness is nothing more than a temporary illusion. As philosopher Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And right now, their reaction isn't healing, it's avoidance. So, while they might look like they've won, remember this. Happiness that comes from running away never lasts. The real win is focusing on yourself, doing the work they refuse to do, and finding the kind of peace that doesn't need a distraction to exist. Because when their illusion fades, you'll be the one who's truly moved on. As we wrap up this exploration of what it means when your avoidant ex jumps into a new relationship right after leaving, it's crucial to remember this. Their actions are a reflection of their struggles, not your worth. You've learned that their swift transition isn't a sign of healing, but rather a way to escape their emotions and avoid accountability. They may think they've found happiness, but in reality, they're merely delaying the inevitable reckoning that will come when the temporary relief wears off. So, what does this mean for you? It means it's time to reclaim your power. You don't have to sit in the shadows, watching them craft a narrative that doesn't include you. Instead, focus on your own journey, your healing, your growth, and your future. Remember the wisdom of Rainer Maria Rilke. The only journey is the one within. Prioritize yourself and invest in your emotional well-being. If you found this video helpful and insightful, I encourage you to take a moment to like, subscribe, and comment below. Share your thoughts on how you're focusing on your own healing and personal growth. Let's build a community where we empower each other to rise above the challenges of past relationships. Join the Ace Wisdom family and tap that notification bell so you won't miss out on future videos packed with valuable insights and strategies for navigating love and relationships. Together, let's turn our experiences into wisdom and ensure that we never settle for less than we deserve. Thank you for watching, and remember, your journey to self-discovery and empowerment is just beginning. Embrace it. When it comes to relationships, we often hear about the concept of no contact as a go-to strategy for healing and reclaiming our power after a breakup or emotional turmoil. But what if I told you that this approach might actually be outdated? What if, instead of retreating into silence, there's a more empowering way to navigate these turbulent waters? In the words of Maya Angelou, we may encounter many defeats, but we must not be defeated. Today, I invite you to consider a new perspective, one that encourages connection and understanding rather than withdrawal. You see, the idea of going no contact can sometimes feel like a double-edged sword. Yes, it's meant to protect your heart, but it can also lead to isolation and unresolved feelings. Instead of leaving someone in silence, what if we shifted our focus to open communication? Renowned author Brené Brown reminds us that vulnerability is not weakness. It's our greatest measure of courage. By allowing ourselves to be vulnerable and express our feelings, we can foster deeper connections and mutual understanding, even in challenging situations. Think about it. When you cut off all communication, you may inadvertently leave the other person guessing about your feelings and intentions. They might misinterpret your silence as indifference, when in reality you're wrestling with your own emotions. Albert Einstein once said, "Peace cannot be kept by force. It can only be achieved by understanding." What if you chose to approach the situation with the intent to understand and be understood, rather than just shutting the door? Imagine the freedom that comes from speaking your truth instead of hiding behind a wall of silence. It's not about engaging in constant conflict or emotional upheaval. It's about cultivating an environment where both parties feel heard and valued. As Oprah Winfrey wisely stated, "The greatest discovery of all time is that a person can change their future by merely changing their attitude." By adopting an attitude of openness and honesty, you can shift the trajectory of your relationship for the better. Now, let's be clear. This doesn't mean you should tolerate disrespect or unhealthy dynamics. It's about finding the courage to express what you truly feel while also setting boundaries. As the legendary Maya Angelou put it, "You alone are enough. You have nothing to prove to anybody. You are worthy of relationships that honor your voice and your feelings, and embracing this truth can be liberating." So, what does this look like in practice? It's about taking those brave steps to communicate your needs without fear of rejection. It's about engaging in dialogue rather than playing the waiting game. You have the power to influence the outcome of your relationships, and that starts with you. Instead of waiting for them to break the silence, you can be the one to initiate a conversation that could lead to growth and healing. As you embark on this journey of self-discovery and empowerment, I promise you that the insights you'll gain today will change the way you view relationships forever. So stick with me until the end of this video. We'll explore practical strategies and profound insights that will help you navigate these complexities with grace and confidence. Remember, you are not alone in this journey, and by choosing to engage rather than retreat, you open the door to a richer, more fulfilling experience. So, if you're ready to redefine the way you approach relationships, let's dive in together. Ace Wisdom presents No Contact is Outdated. Do This instead. Key point number 1. Embrace open communication. One of the most powerful shifts you can make in any relationship is to prioritize open communication over silence. Instead of resorting to the no-contact strategy, which often leads to misunderstandings and emotional distance, consider engaging in honest conversations. Open communication fosters a deeper connection, allowing both parties to express their feelings, concerns, and desires without fear of judgment. When you articulate your thoughts and emotions clearly, you not only validate your own experiences, but also create space for the other person to share theirs. This mutual exchange can lead to greater understanding and empathy, ultimately strengthening the relationship. As author and speaker Brené Brown emphasizes, vulnerability is essential for building trust and connection. By being vulnerable in your communication, you invite the other person to do the same, transforming the dynamic from one of silence and confusion to one of openness and clarity. Additionally, embracing open communication can dispel the fears and assumptions that often accompany silence. Instead of wondering what the other person is thinking or feeling, you can address those uncertainties head-on. This proactive approach not only alleviates anxiety, but also empowers both individuals to take responsibility for their feelings and actions. In doing so, you foster a healthier relationship dynamic, one built on honesty, respect, and mutual understanding. In summary, prioritizing open communication allows you to break free from the constraints of silence and creates an opportunity for growth and connection in your relationships. Key point number 2. Set healthy boundaries. Setting healthy boundaries is crucial for maintaining your emotional well-being and ensuring that your relationships are mutually respectful. Unlike the no-contact approach, which can sometimes lead to feelings of resentment or abandonment, establishing boundaries allows you to assert your needs while still fostering communication. Healthy boundaries are about knowing your limits and communicating them clearly to others. As psychiatrist and author Dr. Henry Cloud states, boundaries are not about keeping people out. They are about protecting what is important to you. When you express your boundaries, you are taking an important step in self-care, showing that you value yourself and your feelings. This helps create an environment where both individuals can feel safe and respected, leading to healthier interactions. In practice, setting boundaries might mean stating how much time you need to process your feelings before discussing a conflict, or expressing what behaviors are unacceptable in the relationship. This clarity not only helps others understand your needs, but also encourages them to voice their own boundaries, creating a balanced dynamic. As author and speaker Brené Brown reminds us, daring to set boundaries is about having the courage to love ourselves, even when we risk disappointing others. Moreover, healthy boundaries can prevent the emotional exhaustion that often accompanies one-sided relationships. By clearly defining what you will and won't tolerate, you can protect yourself from being overwhelmed by the emotional demands of others. This self-advocacy allows you to engage more fully in the relationship, knowing that your needs are being acknowledged and respected. In conclusion, establishing healthy boundaries enhances communication and fosters a more equitable relationship dynamic. It allows both partners to feel secure and valued, paving the way for deeper connections while preserving your own emotional health. Key point number 3. Practice active listening. Active listening is a crucial component of effective communication that often gets overlooked, especially in emotionally charged situations. Rather than simply waiting for your turn to speak, active listening involves fully engaging with the other person, validating their feelings, and showing genuine interest in what they have to say. This practice not only enhances understanding, but also builds trust, allowing for a deeper connection between you and the other person. As Stephen R. Covey, author of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, famously said, "Most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply." By shifting our mindset from replying to truly understanding, we open the door to meaningful conversations. Active listening requires us to set aside our own thoughts and judgments temporarily, focusing entirely on the speaker. This means maintaining eye contact, nodding in acknowledgement, and refraining from interrupting, which communicates that you value their perspective. Moreover, active listening involves reflecting on what the other person has said and paraphrasing it back to them to ensure understanding. This not only confirms that you are paying attention, but also allows the other person to clarify any misunderstandings. By engaging in this practice, you demonstrate empathy and create an environment where both individuals feel heard and appreciated. Additionally, practicing active listening can help diffuse conflicts before they escalate. By acknowledging the other person's feelings and showing that you understand their perspective, you can often diffuse tension and create a more productive dialogue. As renowned author and motivational speaker Tony Robbins states, "The way we communicate with others and with ourselves ultimately determines the quality of our lives." By honing your active listening skills, you improve the quality of your interactions, leading to more harmonious relationships. In summary, active listening is a vital tool in transforming communication dynamics. It fosters understanding, builds trust, and helps create a safe space for both parties to express themselves openly. By committing to this practice, you enhance the potential for connection and intimacy in your relationships, moving away from silence and misunderstandings toward a more meaningful exchange. Key point number 4. Cultivate empathy. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person, and it plays a pivotal role in nurturing healthy relationships. Instead of resorting to the no-contact approach, cultivating empathy allows you to connect on a deeper level and foster a sense of belonging and support. When both individuals in a relationship practice empathy, it creates a safe environment where vulnerability is welcomed and emotional expression is encouraged. Empathy involves actively putting yourself in someone else's shoes and trying to see the world from their perspective. As the late Dr. Maya Angelou wisely said, "I think we all have empathy. We may not have enough courage to display it." By embracing this courage and making a conscious effort to understand what the other person is experiencing, you can bridge emotional gaps and strengthen your bond. Empathy is about more than just sympathy. It's about resonating with someone's feelings and responding with compassion. One effective way to cultivate empathy is to ask open-ended questions that invite the other person to share their thoughts and feelings. For instance, instead of asking, "Why did you do that?" consider saying, "How did that make you feel?" This approach encourages deeper dialogue and signals that you are genuinely interested in their emotions. Listening without judgment allows the other person to feel validated and respected, which can diffuse tension and promote healing. Additionally, Practicing empathy can lead to more constructive conversations, especially during conflicts. When you approach disagreements with a willingness to understand the other person's perspective, you can find common ground and work toward resolutions together. This collaborative mindset aligns with the words of Carl Jung, who said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." By understanding their feelings and motivations, you not only strengthen your connection, but also gain insights into your own responses and behavior. In summary, cultivating empathy is essential for transforming how we communicate and relate to one another. It fosters a deeper emotional connection, enhances understanding, and promotes a collaborative spirit in relationships. By prioritizing empathy, you can create a more supportive and loving environment where both individuals feel valued and heard, moving away from the isolation of silence and toward a richer, more fulfilling connection. Key point number 5. Focus on self-reflection. Self-reflection is a powerful tool that can greatly enhance your relationships by promoting personal growth and a deeper understanding of your own emotions and reactions. Instead of immediately resorting to the no-contact approach, taking the time to reflect on your feelings and behaviors can help you gain clarity and insight, allowing you to engage more effectively in your interactions. When you practice self-reflection, you create an opportunity to assess your thoughts and emotions honestly. As the philosopher Socrates famously stated, "The unexamined life is not worth living." By examining your feelings, you can identify underlying issues that may be influencing your reactions in relationships, such as past traumas or unmet needs. This self-awareness empowers you to communicate your feelings more authentically and constructively, rather than reacting impulsively or withdrawing into silence. Self-reflection also involves recognizing patterns in your relationships. Ask yourself questions like, what triggers my emotional responses? How do I contribute to conflicts? By understanding these patterns, you can work on changing unhealthy behaviors and adopting healthier communication strategies. This aligns with the wisdom of author and motivational speaker Tony Robbins, who said, "If you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always gotten." By reflecting on your past experiences, you can break the cycle of negative interactions and create more positive outcomes. Moreover, engaging in self-reflection allows you to articulate your needs and desires more clearly. When you understand yourself better, you can communicate what you want from a relationship without feeling defensive or overwhelmed. This proactive approach encourages open dialogue and strengthens the connection between you and the other person. Additionally, self-reflection can help you manage your emotions more effectively during conflicts. Instead of reacting out of frustration or hurt, you can take a moment to pause and assess how you truly feel. This pause can be transformative, allowing you to respond with intention rather than impulse. As author Viktor Frankl wisely noted, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. By taking the time to reflect, you harness that power and engage more mindfully in your relationships. In summary, focusing on self-reflection enhances your emotional intelligence and equips you with the tools to communicate more effectively. By understanding your own feelings, behaviors, and patterns, you can engage in healthier interactions and foster deeper connections. Instead of resorting to silence, embrace the practice of self-reflection as a pathway to growth, allowing you to navigate relationships with clarity and purpose. Key point number 6. Prioritize emotional regulation. Emotional regulation is the ability to manage and respond to your emotions in a healthy way, and it plays a vital role in how we navigate relationships. Instead of relying on the no-contact strategy, which can sometimes lead to emotional turmoil and misunderstandings, focusing on emotional regulation allows you to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. This skill is essential for maintaining healthy communication and fostering connection with others. When you prioritize emotional regulation, you become more aware of your feelings and how they influence your behavior. As psychologist Daniel Goleman points out, emotional intelligence begins with self-awareness. By recognizing your emotions, you can take proactive steps to manage them, rather than letting them dictate your actions. This self-awareness is particularly important during conflicts or moments of vulnerability when emotions can run high. One effective strategy for emotional regulation is practicing mindfulness. Mindfulness involves being present in the moment and observing your thoughts and feelings without judgment. Techniques such as deep breathing, meditation, or simply taking a moment to pause and reflect can help you regain your composure when emotions are overwhelming. By cultivating mindfulness, you create a space between your feelings and your reactions, allowing you to respond more thoughtfully. Another key aspect of emotional regulation is identifying triggers that lead to intense emotional responses. By recognizing what situations or behaviors provoke strong feelings in you, you can prepare yourself to handle these moments more effectively. For example, if you know that certain topics lead to conflict, you can choose to address them more calmly or set boundaries around those discussions. This proactive approach helps prevent misunderstandings and escalations that often occur in relationships. Furthermore, developing emotional regulation fosters empathy and understanding in your interactions. When you manage your emotions well, you are better equipped to listen and respond to others with compassion. As author and motivational speaker Les Brown states, "Shoot for the moon. If you miss, you will still be among the stars." By aiming to regulate your emotions, you create a more supportive environment that encourages open dialogue and emotional connection. In summary, prioritizing emotional regulation is essential for building and maintaining healthy relationships. By developing self-awareness and employing strategies like mindfulness, you can manage your emotions effectively and respond to others with empathy and understanding. Rather than relying on silence or withdrawal, embracing emotional regulation empowers you to engage meaningfully in your relationships, fostering a deeper sense of connection and intimacy. Key point number 7. Foster a growth mindset. Fostering a growth mindset is essential for evolving and nurturing healthy relationships. Instead of viewing challenges and conflicts as insurmountable barriers that warrant a no-contact approach, embracing a growth mindset encourages you to see these situations as opportunities for learning and personal development. This perspective can transform your interactions and contribute to deeper, more meaningful connections. A growth mindset, a concept popularized by psychologist Carol Dweck, is the belief that abilities and intelligence can be developed through dedication and hard work. When applied to relationships, this mindset allows you to approach conflicts with the understanding that both you and the other person can grow and improve through constructive dialogue. As Dweck herself says, "Becoming is better than being." This philosophy encourages you to focus on the journey of growth rather than the static state of the relationship. By adopting a growth mindset, you are more likely to view setbacks as opportunities for reflection and improvement. Instead of blaming the other person or retreating into silence, you can ask yourself what you can learn from the situation. This proactive approach fosters resilience and adaptability, enabling you to navigate challenges with a positive attitude. It aligns with the idea expressed by author and motivational speaker John C. Maxwell. Change is inevitable. Growth is optional. By choosing to embrace growth, you empower yourself to shape the direction of your relationships. Moreover, a growth mindset promotes open communication and collaboration. When both individuals in a relationship are willing to learn from their experiences, it creates an environment where feedback is welcomed and constructive criticism can be shared without fear of conflict. This mindset encourages dialogue that focuses on solutions rather than dwelling on problems. By working together to overcome challenges, you strengthen your connection and build a solid foundation of trust and respect. Additionally, fostering a growth mindset allows you to celebrate progress, both yours and your partner's. Acknowledging improvements, no matter how small, reinforces positive behavior and motivates both individuals to continue striving for a deeper understanding and connection. As the great motivational speaker Zig Ziglar said, "You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great." Every step you take toward growth contributes to a more fulfilling relationship. In summary, fostering a growth mindset is essential for navigating the complexities of relationships. By embracing challenges as opportunities for growth, you can transform conflicts into learning experiences that strengthen your connection with others. This mindset encourages open communication, collaboration, and a shared commitment to personal development, moving you away from silence and isolation toward deeper understanding and connection. As we wrap up our exploration of why no contact may be outdated and the empowering alternatives we've discussed, it's clear that fostering healthy relationships requires commitment, courage, and a willingness to engage authentically. By embracing open communication, setting healthy boundaries, practicing active listening, cultivating empathy, focusing on self-reflection, prioritizing emotional regulation, and fostering a growth mindset, you can transform how you connect with others and navigate the complexities of relationships. Remember, relationships are not just about avoiding discomfort. They are about creating opportunities for growth and understanding. As the great author and philosopher Rainer Maria Rilke wisely stated, "Love consists in this, that two solitudes protect and touch each other." By actively engaging with one another, you can build a connection that nurtures both individuals, fostering a sense of belonging and support. I encourage you to reflect on the insights we've shared today and consider how you can apply them to your own relationships. Whether it's initiating a heartfelt conversation, expressing your needs, or simply taking the time to listen and empathize, every step you take toward healthier communication counts. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you found value in this discussion, please consider subscribing to our channel and sharing this video with others who might benefit from these insights. Together, we can create a community focused on growth, understanding, and authentic connection. As you move forward, remember that you have the power to redefine your relationships and cultivate the meaningful connections you deserve. So let's embrace this journey together and transform the way we interact with one another. Thank you for watching, and until next time, take care of yourself and each other. Thank you for watching, and until next time, take care of yourself and each other. When it comes to the emotional roller coaster of a breakup, One of the most intriguing phases is the no contact rule. This period isn't just about silence. It's a complex dance of emotions that your ex is likely experiencing as they process the end of your relationship. Picture this. While you're trying to move on, your ex is going through a series of stages, each one revealing their inner turmoil and conflicting feelings. It's almost like watching a movie unfold, where each act brings new revelations about their mindset and what they truly want. To put it simply, during this no-contact phase, your ex embarks on a journey of reflection and self-discovery. As famous author Elizabeth Gilbert once said, "Your emotions are the slaves to your thoughts, and you are the slave to your emotions." This highlights how their thoughts during this period can lead to a whirlwind of emotions: grief, regret, nostalgia, and even hope. Initially, they may feel relief, convinced that life without you will be easier. But as the days turn into weeks, that relief often morphs into doubt and longing. They start to question their decision, wondering if cutting ties was the right move after all. As time passes, your absence begins to create a void they didn't anticipate. Renowned psychologist Carl Jung stated, "What you resist not only persists, but will grow in size." For your ex, the more they try to suppress their feelings for you, the stronger those feelings become. They might find themselves reminiscing about the good times you shared, grappling with the realization that perhaps they let something special slip away. Nostalgia can be a powerful force, pulling them back to the moments that once made them feel alive. Next comes the bargaining stage, where they may start weighing their options. What if they reached out? Would things be different? This inner dialogue can lead to a mix of courage and hesitation as they grapple with their emotions. The legendary author Maya Angelou once said, "You can't use up creativity. The more you use, the more you have." In this context, their creativity manifests as attempts to rekindle what was lost, though it often clashes with their fears and insecurities. However, what's crucial to understand is that every stage they pass through is not just about them. It's also a reflection of their personal growth. As philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche famously stated, "That which doesn't kill us makes us stronger." The no-contact rule can serve as a transformative experience for your ex, forcing them to confront their vulnerabilities and learn more about themselves. They may discover that their identity is not solely tied to the relationship, and that realization can be both empowering and frightening. Now, let's pivot for a moment. Instead of viewing this time as a waiting game for them to realize what they've lost, consider this. What if you used it to focus on your own growth? Like a wise person once said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." This time apart can be your opportunity to reflect, heal, and evolve into a better version of yourself. It's a chance to prioritize your happiness, separate from the relationship that once defined you. I invite you to think about the power of this no-contact period. It's not merely a means to an end. It's a journey of self-discovery for both you and your ex. And as we delve deeper into the specific stages your ex goes through during this process, I encourage you to stay with us until the end of this video. There's so much more to uncover about how they navigate their emotions, and I promise you, the insights we'll share will transform your understanding of relationships and healing. So, if you're ready to explore these stages and gain valuable wisdom about the dynamics of love and loss, join me on this enlightening journey. Let's unravel the mysteries of the no-contact rule together. Ace Wisdom presents Stages X goes through during no contact rule. Key point number 1. The initial relief and independence. When the no contact rule begins, your ex may initially experience a sense of relief and newfound independence. After a breakup, many people focus on their personal freedom, feeling like they've escaped the emotional complexities of the relationship. They might think that they can finally breathe without the pressure of maintaining a partnership. This stage is characterized by a temporary sense of empowerment, where they feel liberated from the commitments and responsibilities that the relationship entailed. As author Paulo Coelho said, "The secret of happiness is to see all the marvels of the world and never to forget the drops of oil on the spoon." In this context, your ex might be celebrating their independence, exploring new interests, or reconnecting with friends, all while focusing on the positives of being single. However, this relief is often short-lived. As the days pass, the reality of the breakup begins to sink in, leading to a deeper introspection about what was lost. While they may relish their freedom, it's crucial to recognize that this sense of independence can mask feelings of loneliness and regret that may emerge soon after. Reveling in their independence, only to confront the emotional complexities that arise later on. Key point number 2. Nostalgia and regret. As time goes on during the no contact rule, your ex begins to experience nostalgia and regret. Initially, they might enjoy their freedom, but as the days turn into weeks, memories of your shared moments start to resurface. They may find themselves reminiscing about the good times, the laughter, the adventures, and the connection that once felt so fulfilling. This nostalgia can become a powerful emotional force, making them question their decision to end the relationship. Famous author C.S. Lewis once said, "You can make anything by writing." In this context, your ex is essentially rewriting the story of your relationship in their mind, often focusing on the positive experiences while conveniently downplaying the negative aspects that led to the breakup. This selective memory can create a false sense of longing, where they idealize the past and yearn for what they once had. During this stage, they may also grapple with feelings of regret. They might wonder if they acted too hastily, or if they could have handled certain situations differently. This internal struggle can lead to feelings of guilt or shame, especially if they recognize their own role in the relationship's decline. The famous psychologist Elizabeth Kubler-Ross emphasized that the most beautiful things in the world cannot be seen or even touched. They must be felt with the heart. Your ex's heart may begin to ache for the emotional connection they lost, fueling their desire to reconnect. Ultimately, this stage is marked by a poignant mix of nostalgia and regret, prompting your ex to reconsider their choices and reflect on the importance of the relationship. It's a critical turning point that can lead them to reassess what they truly value, setting the stage for the next emotional phase of their journey. Key point number 3. The bargaining phase. As your ex continues to navigate the emotional landscape during the no-contact rule, they may enter what can be described as the bargaining phase. This stage is characterized by a desperate attempt to regain what has been lost, often leading to internal dialogues where they weigh their options and consider the possibility of reaching out to you. During this time, they might replay past conversations and scenarios in their mind, thinking about what they could have done differently to prevent the breakup. The process of bargaining is deeply rooted in the human desire to regain control over a situation that feels irrevocably lost. As the renowned psychologist Viktor Frankl once said, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." In this context, your ex may be realizing that their only option to change their current emotional turmoil is to attempt to reconnect with you. They might fantasize about how a conversation could go, imagining heartfelt apologies and the rekindling of the relationship, even if they're grappling with feelings of anxiety about reaching out. During this phase, your ex might also start to feel the weight of their decisions more acutely. They may consider the what-ifs, pondering questions like, "What if I reached out?" or "What if we could fix this?" This line of thinking can lead to increased confusion as they oscillate between wanting to move on and longing for a second chance. They may even start crafting messages in their minds, contemplating how to articulate their feelings without exposing their vulnerabilities. It's essential to recognize that this stage reflects not just their feelings for you, but also their struggle with their own emotions. As poet Rainer Maria Rilke beautifully expressed, "The only journey is the one within." Your ex is on an emotional journey, wrestling with the complexities of love, loss, and the yearning to reconnect. Ultimately, the bargaining phase serves as a crucial turning point in your ex's emotional journey during the no-contact rule. It highlights their desire to reclaim what was lost while simultaneously confronting the reality of their situation. This stage can pave the way for deeper reflection and potentially set the stage for them to take action, whether that means reaching out to you or coming to terms with moving on. Key point number 4. The realization and acceptance. After traversing through nostalgia, regret, and the bargaining phase, your ex eventually arrives at a point of realization and acceptance. This stage can be one of the most profound during the no-contact rule, as they begin to confront the reality of the breakup and the reasons it occurred. This process often involves a painful yet necessary reckoning with their emotions and the relationship as a whole. As the great philosopher Socrates once stated, "The unexamined life is not worth living." This quote underscores the importance of self-reflection, which becomes a vital component of your ex's journey. They may start to realize that their previous actions and decisions contributed to the relationship's end, prompting them to reflect on their own behaviors and patterns. This introspection can be a wake-up call, encouraging personal growth and a deeper understanding of themselves. During this stage, your ex may experience a mixture of sadness and clarity. They begin to accept that while the relationship had its beautiful moments, it was also fraught with challenges that couldn't be ignored. As author Maya Angelou wisely said, "You may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can control your attitude toward them." Your ex's shift in perspective allows them to acknowledge their emotions and accept the breakup as a part of their life journey, rather than a definitive failure. Acceptance doesn't mean that your ex has completely moved on. Instead, it signifies a willingness to let go of the past and embrace the present. They may begin to understand that healing is a process and that it's okay to feel pain, but it's also essential to look forward. This realization can lead them to focus on self-improvement, whether through pursuing new interests, engaging in self-care, or working on personal issues that may have affected the relationship. In this stage, your ex also becomes more aware of the importance of boundaries and healthy relationships. They might start to understand what they want in a partner moving forward, reflecting on lessons learned from their time with you. The acceptance phase is a crucial turning point that can ultimately lead to growth and transformation, not just for them, but also for the dynamics of future relationships. This process of realization and acceptance is integral to your ex's emotional journey during the no-contact rule. It's a time of reflection, growth, and ultimately the opportunity to embrace a new chapter in life. Whether that involves moving on, or perhaps reconsidering what they truly want from a relationship with you in the future. Key point number 5. The decision to reach out or move on. Once your ex has processed their feelings through nostalgia, regret, bargaining, and acceptance, they face a pivotal moment. The decision to reach out or to move on entirely. This stage is often marked by a sense of clarity about their emotions and what they truly desire, and it can be one of the most challenging crossroads in their journey. In this moment of decision, your ex may weigh the pros and cons of re-establishing contact. They might feel a strong pull to reconnect with you, driven by lingering feelings and the emotional bond that still exists. As psychologist Carl Rogers famously said, "The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change." For your ex, reaching out may stem from a newfound acceptance of themselves and the realization that they want to explore the possibility of rekindling the relationship with a healthier mindset. However, the decision to reach out can be fraught with uncertainty. They may fear rejection, worry about reopening old wounds, or question whether things could truly be different this time around. This inner conflict can create a sense of hesitation as they grapple with their emotions and the potential consequences of their actions. The wise words of author J.K. Rowling resonate here. It is our choices that show what we truly are, far more than our abilities. This understanding highlights the significance of their choice, not just in terms of the relationship, but also in how it reflects their personal growth and maturity. In some cases, your ex may choose to reach out, feeling that they've learned from past mistakes and are ready to communicate openly. This can lead to a heartfelt conversation where they express their feelings, apologize for past actions, and discuss the possibility of moving forward together. On the other hand, they may decide that the best path is to honor their growth and move on without rekindling the relationship. This decision can be empowering as they embrace their newfound independence and the lessons learned from the experience. Regardless of the outcome, this decision-making phase is crucial for your ex's emotional development. It serves as a culmination of their journey through the no-contact rule and reflects their growth and understanding of themselves and relationships. Whether they choose to reconnect or to walk away, this stage represents a significant step forward in their healing process, setting the stage for new beginnings and a deeper understanding of what they want in love and life. After your ex makes the decision to either reach out or move on, they inevitably face the emotional aftermath of that choice. This stage is characterized by a mix of feelings that can include relief, sadness, closure, or even renewed hope, depending on how they navigate the outcome of their decision. If your ex chooses to reach out, they may experience a surge of excitement and anxiety as they take that brave step. Reconnecting can bring back a flood of emotions, including happiness at the prospect of rekindling the relationship, but it can also reopen old wounds. As American author Anne Lamott wisely stated, "Hope begins in the dark. The stubborn hope that if you just show up and try to do the right thing, the dawn will come." In this context, your ex may find themselves filled with a mix of hope and apprehension as they navigate the complexities of reconciling their feelings and fears. Conversely, if your ex decides to move on, they might go through a different emotional experience. While this choice can bring a sense of empowerment and liberation, it can also lead to feelings of grief over the loss of the relationship. This duality of emotions is perfectly encapsulated in the words of author Joan Didion. We tell ourselves stories in order to live. Your ex's narrative may shift from longing for what was to embracing the potential of what lies ahead. But that transition can be fraught with challenges. In either scenario, your ex must confront the reality of their feelings. If they reconnect, they'll need to navigate the complexities of rebuilding trust and communication while acknowledging past mistakes. If they move on, they may need to actively engage in the process of healing and self-discovery to ensure that they don't carry unresolved emotions into future relationships. This stage of emotional aftermath also highlights the importance of self-care. Whether they are rekindling the relationship or embracing their independence, your ex must prioritize their well-being during this transitional phase. This may involve seeking support from friends and family, exploring new hobbies, or engaging in practices that promote emotional healing. As psychologist Brené Brown poignantly stated, "You are imperfect. You are wired for struggle, but you are also worthy of love and belonging." This recognition is vital as your ex navigates the complex emotions that arise from their choices. Ultimately, the emotional aftermath is a critical phase in your ex's journey during the no-contact rule. It reflects their growth, their ability to confront their feelings, and their commitment to either rebuilding the relationship or forging a new path forward. Regardless of the choice they make, this stage can lead to profound personal growth and the opportunity to embrace a brighter, more fulfilling future. As we reach the conclusion of our exploration into the stages your ex goes through during the no-contact rule, it's important to reflect on the journey we've discussed. Each phase, from the initial relief and nostalgia to regret, bargaining, realization, and the emotional aftermath, reveals the complexities of human emotions and the paths we take in love and loss. Understanding these stages not only sheds light on your ex's emotional landscape, but also empowers you to navigate your own feelings during this challenging time. Whether your goal is to reconnect or to focus on your healing, recognizing these phases can help you approach the situation with greater clarity and compassion. As we've seen, healing is not a linear process. It's filled with ups and downs, moments of doubt and flashes of insight. The wise words of author C.S. Lewis remind us, "You are never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream." Embrace this time as an opportunity for personal growth and self-discovery, allowing yourself to emerge stronger and more resilient. If you found value in our discussion today, I encourage you to take a moment to reflect on your own journey and share your thoughts in the comments below. Remember, you are not alone in this process, and our community is here to support you. Thank you for joining me in this exploration of the emotional stages your ex experiences during the no-contact rule. Stay connected with us for more insights and guidance on relationships and personal growth. And remember, the power to create the future you desire lies within you. Until next time, take care of yourself and keep moving forward on your journey of healing and self-discovery. Silence can be deafening, but not for the person who mastered the art of detachment. If your avoidant ex is acting like you never existed, it's not because they forgot you, it's because ignoring you gives them a sense of control. As the great philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "The most common lie is that which one lies to himself." They pretend you never mattered, not because it's true, but because it protects them from facing the reality of their own emotional limitations. But here's the hard truth. This isn't about you. It never was. Their behavior is a reflection of them, not of your worth. As Maya Angelou wisely put it, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Avoidants show you who they are through distance, through cold detachment, through making you feel invisible. The mistake is thinking you can change that by chasing them. So, what do? Do you fight for their attention? Do you try to remind them of the love you once shared? No. That's exactly what they expect. They thrive on knowing that their absence hurts you. But you have a choice. You can do something they never saw coming. You can flip the script. Like Bruce Lee once said, "Be water, my friend." Instead of pushing against the wall they've built, flow around it. Adapt. Move forward. Most people make the mistake of seeing an avoidant silence as a challenge, something to overcome. But the truth is, their silence is their weakness. They are running from emotional depth, from connection, from themselves. And the more you chase, the faster they run. Instead of feeding into their game, take a page from Marcus Aurelius. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The moment you stop trying to break their silence and start embracing your own power, is the moment you become untouchable. The moment you stop looking for validation from someone who avoids intimacy is the moment you set yourself free. Remember what Steve Jobs said. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. And that includes wasting it on someone who refuses to acknowledge your existence. They might act indifferent, but deep down, they expect you to reach out. They expect you to seek closure. They expect you to break first. Don't give them that satisfaction. Instead, take back your energy. As Sun Tzu wrote in The Art of War, the greatest victory is that which requires no battle. Your silence, when chosen out of strength and not desperation, will speak louder than any words ever could. Think about it. Why should you fight for a place in someone's life when they are showing you that they don't deserve you? As Oprah Winfrey once said, when you undervalue what you do, the world will undervalue who you are. It's time to stop undervaluing yourself. It's time to stop waiting for them to acknowledge your worth and start embracing it for yourself. I know it's not easy, but I promise you this. When you shift your focus from them to you, everything changes. You'll no longer crave validation from someone who can't even face their own emotions. You'll no longer replay old conversations, wondering what went wrong. You'll realize that the real power was in your hands all along. So, if you're ready to stop waiting for answers that will never come and start reclaiming your strength, stay with me until the end of this video, because what I'm about to reveal will change the way you see your avoidant ex forever. Drop a comment below and say, "I choose my power." And if you're ready to dive deeper, join the Ace Wisdom family. Together, we'll unlock the truths that set you free. Ace Wisdom presents Why You're Avoidant. X acts like you never existed. Reason number 1. Avoidants detach to protect themselves. Your avoidant ex isn't ignoring you because they don't care. It's because they've spent their entire life mastering the art of emotional escape. To them, closeness equals danger, and the moment things get too intense, their instinct is to shut down. As Sigmund Freud once said, unexpressed emotions will never die. They are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways. Avoidants don't process emotions the way you do. Instead of confronting pain, they suppress it. pretending you never existed because facing the truth is too uncomfortable. Think back to your relationship. Were there times when they seemed distant for no reason? When they pulled away just as things were going well? That wasn't random. Avoidance fear dependency, and when they start feeling too emotionally involved, their subconscious tells them to retreat. It's not that they never cared. It's that caring too much feels like losing control. By acting like you never existed, they are reinforcing the emotional walls they've built their whole life to protect themselves. Now, here's the ironic part. The more you chase them, the stronger their defenses become. They see emotional closeness as a threat, and any attempt to reconnect only pushes them further away. As the great Stoic philosopher Epictetus put it, people are not disturbed by things, but by the view they take of them. To an avoidant, emotional intensity isn't love. It's overwhelming. So they convince themselves that shutting you out is the only way to regain their sense of control. But here's the real question. Is that the kind of connection you truly want? A relationship where you're constantly questioning if you're too much, if you're pushing too hard, if they'll disappear the moment things get real. You deserve a love that doesn't run at the first sign of depth. You deserve someone who leans in, not out. And the moment you stop trying to break their walls and start focusing on your own emotional strength, that's the moment you win. So, instead of wondering why they act like you never existed, start asking yourself, why am I waiting for someone who refuses to face their own feelings? Because the truth is, their detachment isn't about you, it's about them. And when you realize that, their silence stops being painful and starts being proof of why you deserve better. Reason number 2. Ignoring you reinforces their sense of control. For an avoidant, control is everything. They've spent years perfecting the ability to keep people at a distance, and one of the most effective ways to do that is by pretending you never existed. This isn't just about moving on. It's about reinforcing the idea that they are in charge of their emotions, their space, and most importantly, their ability to detach at will. As Machiavelli once said, the wise man does at once what the fool does at last. To them, cutting you off quickly isn't heartless. It's smart. It prevents vulnerability before it can even begin. Deep down, avoidants fear that emotional intimacy will strip them of their autonomy. The closer they get to someone, the more they feel like they're losing control over their own emotions. So, the moment a relationship ends, they flip the switch. They don't want to dwell, reminisce, or process feelings the way you do. Instead, they convince themselves that you never really mattered. Because admitting otherwise would mean admitting that they need someone, and that terrifies them. Think about it. Why do they act so cold when just weeks ago they were laughing with you, holding you, making memories? It's not that they've forgotten. It's that acknowledging those moments means acknowledging that you had an impact on them. And that kind of emotional weight feels unbearable to an avoidant. As the famous writer George Orwell once put it, the most effective way to destroy people is to deny and obliterate their own understanding of their history. By erasing you from their life, they rewrite the story in a way that keeps them feeling strong. But here's the key. This isn't real strength. True strength isn't about shutting people out. It's about facing emotions head-on. While they may seem unbothered, their need for control is actually a sign of emotional fragility. A secure person doesn't need to pretend an ex never existed. A secure person acknowledges the past, learns from it, and moves forward with wisdom. By refusing to play their game, by refusing to seek validation from someone who denies their own emotions, you reclaim your power. So instead of asking why they erased you, ask yourself, why do I care about someone who needs to manipulate reality to feel in control? The moment you stop needing answers from them is the moment you break free from their hold. And when that happens, their control over you disappears, just like they did. Reason number 3. They convince themselves you were never that important. Avoidants have a defense mechanism that allows them to move on faster than most people. They downplay the significance of the relationship. This isn't because they didn't care. It's because admitting they cared would force them to confront emotions they've spent their whole lives running from. As the philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre once said, "We are our choices." And their choice is to rewrite history in a way that makes it easier for them to walk away. When an avoidant ex acts like you never existed, they're not just erasing you from their life. They're rewriting the entire narrative in their mind. They tell themselves things like, "It wasn't that deep," or "I was never really in love," because those lies protect them from dealing with loss. If they acknowledge how much you meant to them, they'd have to process emotions they've been suppressing for years. And that's not something they know how to handle. This is why you might feel shocked at how easily they seem to move on. It's not that they aren't affected. It's that they've convinced themselves not to be. They create emotional distance by trivializing what you shared. The famous author F. Scott Fitzgerald once wrote, "The loneliest moment in someone's life is when they are watching their whole world fall apart, and all they can do is stare blankly." This is the reality of an avoidant. Rather than face their emotions, they numb themselves to them. But here's the truth. The fact that they pretend you were never important doesn't mean it's true. It only means they don't have the emotional tools to process what they lost. The worst thing you can do is try to prove your worth to them. Why? Because the more you try to remind them of what you had, the more they'll push the idea that it never mattered. It's their way of keeping control. So, instead of wondering how they can forget you so easily, remind yourself. Just because someone denies your impact doesn't mean you didn't have one. Their detachment is their coping mechanism, but that doesn't mean you should make it yours. Let them rewrite history if they need to, but don't let them rewrite your self-worth along with it. Reason number 4. Avoidants fear the weight of emotional responsibility. Avoidants aren't just afraid of intimacy. They're afraid of what comes with it, responsibility. Being emotionally connected to someone means considering their feelings, being accountable for your actions, and handling difficult conversations. That level of responsibility feels overwhelming to them, so they take the easy way out, complete avoidance. As Winston Churchill once said, "The price of greatness is responsibility." But avoidants don't want to pay that price. Instead, they disappear and act like you never existed, because facing the emotional consequences of their actions would require growth they're not ready for. Think about it. Did your ex ever struggle with deep conversations? Did they deflect when things got serious? Maybe they shut down when you expressed your feelings, or worse, made you feel like you were too much for wanting basic emotional connection. That wasn't a coincidence. Avoidants see emotions as a burden, something that weighs them down instead of something that strengthens bonds. By acting like you never existed, they dodge any responsibility for how their actions affected you. This is why avoidants rarely offer closure. Giving closure would mean admitting they played a role in your pain. It would mean acknowledging the impact of their choices. And for someone who has spent years avoiding emotional depth, that's the last thing they want to do. As Carl Jung put it, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. Ignoring you isn't about you. It's about their unwillingness to face themselves. But here's what you need to understand. Emotional responsibility isn't optional in a healthy relationship. Love isn't just about attraction and fun. It's about commitment, communication, and accountability. If your ex isn't capable of handling that, then they weren't capable of giving you real love in the first place. Letting them go isn't a loss, it's a blessing. So instead of waiting for them to acknowledge the pain they caused, accept that they won't. Not because you don't deserve it, but because they aren't capable of giving it. And that's not your burden to carry. Your healing begins when you stop expecting an avoidant to provide closure and start giving it to yourself. Reason number 5. Emotional intimacy is a threat to their independence. For avoidants, emotional intimacy feels like a loss of independence. They crave freedom and autonomy, and anything that encroaches on that sense of self is viewed as a threat. The moment things get too intimate, they panic. They believe that if they allow someone to get too close, they risk losing their individuality and ultimately their freedom. As author and speaker Brené Brown wisely said, vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. But for an avoidant, vulnerability equates to danger, leading them to act like you never existed to preserve their sense of self. This need for independence often manifests as a fear of commitment. When you were in a relationship, did your ex often express discomfort with plans for the future? Did they shy away from discussions about long-term goals or the potential of a shared life? This isn't just casual disinterest. It's a deeply ingrained fear of being tied down. To avoid that feeling of being trapped, they shut down and convince themselves that they don't need anyone, that they can go it alone. The irony is that while they push you away, they may also long for connection in their own way. However, their fear of losing their independence leads them to self-sabotage relationships. They convince themselves that ignoring you is the best way to maintain their freedom. Philosopher Søren Kierkegaard said, "Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards." Avoidants struggle to live forward when they're trapped in a loop of self-preservation. This behavior is not just about rejecting you, it's about rejecting the idea that they need anyone at all. They'll tell themselves that moving on without you is easy, that you never really mattered, simply to soothe their own fear of emotional dependency. But deep down, this detachment is a reflection of their internal struggle. They might act like they're thriving in their independence, but the truth is that true emotional connection can be the very thing that helps us grow. So, instead of wondering why they treat you as if you never existed, recognize that their actions are a defense mechanism rooted in fear. It's a sign that they haven't learned how to balance emotional closeness with their need for independence. Remember that you deserve a partner who embraces vulnerability and cherishes the connection you shared. Letting go of someone who doesn't see your worth is the first step toward finding the fulfilling relationship you truly deserve. Reason number 6. They rely on avoidance as a coping mechanism. For many avoidants, their tendency to act as if you never existed is not merely a reflection of their feelings about you. It's a coping mechanism they've developed over time to manage their emotions. Rather than confronting their feelings, they choose to avoid them altogether. This pattern of behavior is rooted in their past experiences, where emotional suppression was likely a learned response. As psychologist John Bowlby stated, "The bond that links your true family is not one of blood, but of respect and joy in each other's life." For avoidants, emotional connections can feel threatening, leading them to dismiss relationships altogether. When faced with emotional discomfort, avoidants may revert to avoidance as a default reaction. This means they disengage, cut ties, and act as if the relationship never mattered, all in an effort to protect themselves from further pain. Their behavior is a way of coping with the complex feelings they don't know how to process. This can leave you feeling dismissed, as if the love you shared was insignificant. But the reality is that their avoidance stems from a place of fear. Fear of being vulnerable, and fear of the emotional upheaval that closeness can bring. In their minds, by pretending you never existed, they can maintain a sense of control and keep their emotional world intact. As the author J.K. Rowling once said, "It is our choices that show what we truly are, far more than our abilities." Their choice to erase you from their life is less about your worth and more about their inability to confront their own emotions. Avoidants often prioritize their emotional safety over the connections they forge, which leads to a cycle of withdrawal and isolation. This coping mechanism can create a painful paradox. While they may feel safe in their detachment, they are ultimately robbing themselves of the intimacy and support that come from healthy relationships. It's important to understand that their behavior is not a reflection of your value. It's a testament to their struggles with emotional vulnerability. As you process the end of your relationship, remind yourself that you deserve someone who is willing to engage openly and honestly, not someone who runs away when things get tough. So, instead of feeling hurt by their silence, recognize it as a sign of their internal battle. You cannot change how they cope with their emotions, but you can choose to honor your own feelings. Letting go of someone who relies on avoidance is a powerful step toward finding a relationship where both partners can face their emotions together, creating a connection based on trust, openness, and genuine intimacy. As we wrap up this exploration of why your avoidant ex acts like you never existed, it's essential to remember that their behavior speaks volumes about their internal struggles rather than your worth. Each reason we've discussed reveals a deeper truth. Avoidants often grapple with their fear of intimacy, emotional responsibility, and vulnerability. Their tendency to detach and pretend you never mattered is not a reflection of who you are, but rather a defense mechanism rooted in their inability to face their emotions. Navigating a relationship with an avoidant can be incredibly challenging, and their actions can leave you feeling rejected and unworthy. But it's vital to shift your perspective. Instead of dwelling on their silence and indifference, focus on your healing journey. Recognize that you deserve love and connection with someone who values emotional intimacy and is willing to engage openly. Remember the wise words of Brené Brown. Vulnerability is not weakness. It's our greatest measure of courage. Embracing your vulnerability can lead to more profound connections in the future. Letting go of an avoidant is not a failure. It's an act of self-preservation. By choosing to prioritize your emotional well-being, you open yourself up to the possibility of healthier relationships built on mutual respect, understanding, and love. It's time to reclaim your power and embrace your worth. You are not defined by someone else's inability to connect. Instead, you are strong, deserving, and capable of finding a partner who will celebrate your presence in their life. Thank you for joining me on this journey to understand why your avoidant ex may act like you never existed. If you found value in this video, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's continue to support each other on the path to emotional clarity and healing. Remember, you are not alone, and there is a community of people who understand what you're going through.